Hey everyone! Today we're diving into a super hot and fiercely competitive topic, Europe and America's dependence on China's lithium-ion battery market. Ever wondered if the electric car you've been dreaming of, the phone you're holding right now, or even the green energy systems of the future are all secretly in China's hands? What have Europe and the US done to break free from this reliance? And could these two regions one day just end up as manufacturing and assembly hubs for Chinese battery giants? Let's dig in and find out together. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on more awesome videos like this. First up, let's talk about why Europe and the US are so hooked on China's battery market. Lithium-ion batteries, those little powerhouses you find in electric vehicles, EVs, phones and laptops, are basically the beating heart of modern tech. And right now, China is the undisputed king of this game. Recent stats show that China churns out 70 to 80% of the world's lithium-ion batteries. Companies like CATL, BYD, and Goshen High-Tech aren't just leading in production. They're also way ahead in core technology. Picture this. Every electric car needs about 8 kilograms of lithium. With millions of EVs rolling out each year, the global demand for lithium is exploding. But not everyone can keep up. China controls nearly the entire supply chain, from mining lithium, to refining it, to turning it into finished batteries. The Chinese government has pumped tens of billions of dollars into this industry, from subsidies for companies to cutting-edge tech research. To give you a clearer picture, let's break down the global lithium-ion battery market share. According to recent data, the top 10 battery makers worldwide are CATL with about 37%, BYD around 13%, LG Energy Solution at 12%, Panasonic at 7%, Samsung SDI at 5%, SK On at 6%, KLB and Goshen High-Tech each at 3–4%, followed by Envision AESC and Tesla with smaller slices. Notice anything? Over half of these are Chinese companies. Now, when it comes to raw lithium production, the top 5 countries are Australia, 52% of global output, Chile, 25%, China, 13%, Argentina, 6%, and Brazil, 1%. Sure, Australia and Chile mine a ton, but China's the one refining it and turning it into batteries, a massive advantage. Over in Europe, the situation's pretty obvious. Big car makers like Volkswagen and Stellantis need batteries to meet EV goals and the EU's strict emissions rules. For example, Stellantis teamed up with CATL to build a $4.1 billion battery plant in Spain, while Volkswagen dropped $1.1 billion into China's Goshen High-Tech for a factory in Germany. But it's not just about supply. It's about relying on China's expertise and tech. A Transport and Environment (T&E) report says over 90% of EV and energy storage batteries worldwide come from Asian companies, mostly from China and South Korea. What about the US? Even with giants like Tesla, they're still leaning on Chinese battery components. Ford's working with CATL but also tapping South Korea's SK to diversify. General Motors went with Samsung SDI. Still, when partnering with Chinese firms like BYD, the US government sets strict rules about skill transfers, something China isn't always eager to share. It's clear the US can't fully shake off China's influence in this space either. So why is China so dominant? Simple. They've got the resources, advanced tech, and a long-term game plan. Back in 2014, China overtook Japan and South Korea to become the global battery production hub. They don't just make batteries cheaper, they make them faster than anyone else. Alright, now let's move to part 2. Why is it so hard for Europe and the US to break free? Sounds easy, right? Just make your own batteries. But the reality's way messier. In Europe, take Northvolt, the continent's big hope in the battery game. This Swedish company, founded in 2016, raised over $10 billion to take on China. But by November 2024, Northvolt went bust. Why? They struggled to churn out high-quality batteries at scale, lost a $2.1 billion BMW contract, and couldn't match China's speed or low costs. Julia Poliskanova, a senior director at T&E, put it bluntly. Europe could spend 10–15 years trying and failing with companies like Northvolt. Plus, EV demand in Europe is slowing down. Companies like Automotive Cells Company, ACC, a joint venture between Stellantis, Mercedes-Benz, and Total Energies, had to pause factory expansion plans from Dunkirk to Germany and Italy because the market's cooling off. ACC even borrowed $845 million just to stay afloat. Europe's not just short on tech, they're short on cash and a big enough market to go it alone. In the US, things aren't much better. Sure, the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, is pouring billions into domestic battery production, but America's still lagging. According to Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, China has 93 massive battery plants, aka gigafactories, while the US has just 4. By 2030, China's projected to hit 140 gigafactories. The US might reach 10. That means the US will still import batteries or parts from China, especially since production costs in America are 78% higher than in China, thanks to labor shortages and inflation. The big challenge for both? They're missing raw materials and large-scale production muscle. China controls nearly all global lithium processing, while the raw stuff mostly comes from South America and Australia. To go independent, the US and EU need to sink tens of billions into mining, refining, and manufacturing, a process that could take years, even decades. Goldman Sachs once predicted the West could break free by 2030 with $160 billion in investment. But at this pace, that feels like a long shot. And China's not sitting still. They're pushing new tech, like Fudan University's lithium-ion battery regeneration method, which extends battery life to 12,000 charge cycles, a breakthrough the West hasn't caught up to yet. So, what's the future look like? Could Europe and the US end up as manufacturing and assembly hubs for China's battery industry if they don't step up? Let's break it down. In Europe, a new T&E study warns, without forcing tech transfers and deals with China, Europe risks just assembling batteries, not innovating them. Check this out. Stellantis and CATL's plant in Spain got $300 million in government funding, but there's no requirement for CATL to share tech. Same deal with Volkswagen's big investment in Gotion. T&E says there's almost no knowledge or IP transfer. That means Chinese firms keep the know-how, while Europe handles the final steps, basically becoming a giant outsourcing factory. Marc Allochet, a researcher at École Polytechnique, says large-scale battery production is Europe's Achilles heel. China forced European carmakers to share tech when they set up shop there earlier this century, but now Europe's not flipping the script. If this keeps up, Europe could stay stuck relying on Chinese expertise forever. In the US, things are a bit different thanks to tighter controls. When Ford teams up with CATL or GM works with BYD, the government demands skill transfers and maintains oversight. But that doesn't change the fact that the US still needs Chinese parts. Without mastering the supply chain, America could end up in a similar boat, making batteries but not owning the core tech. Worst-case scenario? Europe and the US turn into assembly hubs for CATL, BYD, and Gotion, while China stays the brain of the global battery industry. This isn't just about economics. It's a national security issue. If China cuts off battery exports for political or economic reasons, both regions would be in deep trouble. But there's still hope. The EU's considering making Chinese firms share IP for subsidies, and the US is investing in sodium-ion batteries as a lithium alternative. Still, at this rate, China's at least a decade ahead, as expert Andy Palmer has pointed out. So, can Europe and the US turn it around? It all depends on how hard they go on tech, production, and policy in the next few years. And that's it. We've just unpacked Europe and America's reliance on China's lithium-ion battery market. This is a huge game, not just about tech, but about economic power and the green future of the planet. What do you think? How should Europe and the US take back control? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more cool content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.